So I'm painting these portraits, and I'm like, well, everybody does portraits. Like what's your, like, why is you like, okay, everybody's got a cool style. I like that style. And then in my head, I feel like I'm chasing, ooh, how do I be different? But then I just let go. And what I didn't realize is that you're painting on aluminum cans, dude. Like, like what? Like, let that be your thing. And so I think in that moment, there was a epiphany of, oh snap, you can actually incorporate the commercial thing that you like about pop art into this traditional painting on oils on aluminum. Sort of an inspired thought of seeing a crushed can on the street, right? It's like somebody stomped a can and was crushed. And for some reason, my brain was like, that would be cool if you could crush a can and you'd see facial features, right, out of that, and you paint on that. So that's what started. The crushed can, sort of blackface, was what started this. And I grabbed some oil paints, and like, again, I got water and oil, like, so, and a cup and some crappy brushes, and I just put paint on the can to see if it would even take. Is it gonna, like, you know, the surface of a can is really, it's not porous, right? So now everything's gonna sit on the surface. So how much of that's gonna take, and what is that gonna be like? And so you're caking it on, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that's kind of interesting. It dries, and you're like, wow, that's blackface, yeah. But not that was the intention, but yet it's arresting, it's striking. It's this black face, these white eyes, these red lips, and it's just bold, right? And if anything that comes out of advertising and commercial world to me is like bold statements that stand out. Then I think I started introducing the color of the can on mats. Like I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this, old English can. I'm gonna get that background. So after I stumbled on like, oh, I'm using the commercial side of the can. I'm using Coca-Cola, I'm using Pepsi, right? So now like in my head, I'm probably trying to force like, okay, what can I do that's colorful, right? And then cross color comes to mind, and then certain things. But then I have to, again, this is sort of the commercial side, right? I got a time frame, I got to force it. But with me, I'm like, but it's not ready yet. I don't want to force it. Don't do it just because it's that. I think the Coogee sweater is a natural trans sort of like a moment where you can put something together that feels natural to what you know of a Biggie. And so I can then incorporate the cans. And that was sort of the epiphany, right? Where I want things to speak to me more, right? I come from New York, and I think of this advertising background where I was like, okay, I'm going to be in advertising. But I moved to LA, and LA is like very movie centric, right? So everything's movie based, theatrical, and I found myself at the Walt Disney Studios early on, like 91. And this is also the beginning of what was considered desktop publishing, right? So I was lucky enough to start in a division. It was just me and another guy at the Walt Disney Company building stuff on the computer. And from that, I kind of grew into designing movie posters for a living. I did a lot of the animated films for Pixar. I'd say that was a big part of the journey and the commercial aspect of it. I learned a lot about advertising and how to market things. The things that we see out in the world, say we see on a billboard and bus shelters, I've had to do 60 or 70 of those to get to that one idea, right? And so with what I do commercially, I temper myself. But with this, I don't have to. So sometimes when you say, "Ooh, did I say that?" It's like, that's what the art is. It's like, yeah, that's what's in my head because that's what's inspiring me. That's what's telling me, like, I feel that, I want to say that. Like the sardine cans was not like on a list of things. It was like, oh snap, a sardine can. That's, you know what that makes you feel. And so then the ideas kind of snowball in that way. They kind of hand in hand come together. And this is what I talk about when I say I love the process and I hate the process, because I love that epiphany moment when you've like, voila, like you've got it, right? It's when you're toiling on what are you going to paint and you don't know what you're going to paint, and you're like, they're not going to see another piece from me for 3 months because I don't have an idea, and then something happens, right? But I believe like the 80s, the height of the 80s was great for art in New York City and music. And so I was a part of that generation. One person that I think took things, ultimately got in trouble for it, right? But now he's applauded for it, right? Is Dapper Dan, right? And he's in Harlem, New York. There's a Dapper Dan on 125th Street. And basically he would take the Louis Vuitton And it was like, oh, I didn't know Louis Vuitton made like the tire covers. You know, like, no, they don't. This guy repurposed, recycled things. You know, I didn't know Gucci made a bomber jacket. No, they didn't. Right? I think taking something that was not intended for that purpose and being able to either upcycle it or convert it into something else that's like, ooh, that's cool, I think is always been a part of, I'd say, the hip hop black culture. I think when you don't have something, it's like, it sucks to not have stuff, right? It sucks to not have food. It sucks to not have money to do what you want. But sometimes it creates some of the most amazing inspiration that you can't buy. You just can't buy that, you know? I don't know. I love that. I'm glad I didn't have stuff actually on a lot of times.